Again to. Okay. I can't. Like. Far. The throws. Yeah. Yeah, baby. TGS prop. Depending. Oh, yeah. In-depth evaluation. Prop. Nice. Going fast. 3S. Oh yeah. 8 kilohertz on the as I'm pushing the speed up. Victory roll. Okay, we'll show off here. Dead stick. Hi everyone, welcome to another Table Talk. So I wanted to start things off there and get everybody's blood going for some speed. I think about 80–90% of the passes in that video edit were on 4S. So I've been having some conversations the last couple of days with Ground Control RC, who I worked on with his Ground Control RC F22 Mini version 3, which has just been recently released. So I'll have links to his YouTube channel and Patreon and site down below. Please go check that out. So anyway, in the past I've actually done a video called ParkJet Table Talk Need for Speed, I think, and I'll have that link down below. And in that video I actually talked just very briefly about gear. I talked primarily about the airplane. You know, the airframe, which airframe to choose, how to build it, finish it, that sort of stuff, to really squeeze the maximum amount of speed out of your plane. And it also, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean if you don't want to, you know, light your hair on fire. By doing those things, if you get in the habit of doing those things, your plane will just actually fly far more efficiently. So that's a side benefit. So today I wanted to talk more about gear and share my thoughts and experiences. You know, if you're excited and you're ready to, you know, really take the next step up, and you want to really push the speed envelope and go from 3S to 4S in your ParkJet. Now, most of us, including me, I fly probably 99% of the time with a 3S battery. I prefer, you know, 3S 2200 size batteries, you know, to get good flight times and you know, have good weight in my planes. But you know, every once in a while, if you've watched any of my videos, and at the start, I like to drop a little 4S power bomb in there and really scare the living daylights out of myself. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Now, there are certainly ways, you know, depending on where you are in your ParkJet journey or your RC journey, that, you know, you can more slowly step up the speed without going right to a 4S, or you don't even necessarily have to go to a 4S. And a lot of that you can do just by props or manipulating the settings or the timing in your speed controller. So I will have linked my motor test spreadsheet down below. I encourage you to go check that out. I do have, right at the very far left, each motor has its own tab along the bottom. At the very far left, I have quite a bit of testing I've done with you know, the 2212 6 2200, or as Hobby King still labels them, 2826 6 2200. This is kind of like, you know, the ParkJet workhorse. A lot of people use those, and you can get those very inexpensively. You know, you can also step just on 3S, step up to a 2212 5T 2700. You can get these very inexpensively from GearBest and eBay, Banggood, things like that. So today I'm going to talk about more of like an entry-level type quad motor that I think even just on 3S will again step up your speed, and also the other nice thing is you'll drop a little bit of weight You can use the same speed controller and the same battery, but just in motor weight alone, you'll lose about 17 to 20 grams. And this is the Racer Star BR2406 S 2600. You can see this one's got a few scars on it. This is the first one that I've had. I have a couple hundred flights on this. I've put it through its paces. Down below, I've reorganized my playlists on my YouTube channel, and I have an entire playlist of table talks and flights, flight testing that I've done with this motor, so I'll have that linked down below. So anyway, this is what I did some comparative testing on 3S and 4S, and I experimented using the Plush 40 amp speed controller because I know that, you know, that's a very popular speed controller, and it's certainly nowhere near as expensive as you know, a Hobbywing Platinum Pro. So, you know, if you're just wanting to stay within a budget, I'm not exactly sure of the price, but let's say this is around a $10 motor or so. You know, you can save some money and still have some good power. So I experimented with high timing, definitely on 3S. I did see a big jump in using the 6x3 EMP KMP TGS prop and the King Kong 6040 prop. So that's one way right away. I think I gained about 100 grams of thrust at full throttle, and it's only pulling about 30 amps. So, you know, this Plush 40 amp speed controller can easily handle that just on 3S. And you can also, I'm going to be field testing this prop. This is the Gemfan Flash 6042 by 2 prop. And it actually is the best, produced the best thrust I've seen on 3S anyway. I think it would be too much for this motor on 4S, but I'm going to be field testing this very soon. So some things to think about. I mean, obviously, you know, it's not just one of these things that, you know, somebody gave you a 4S battery for Christmas and you're just going to drop it in your park jet and go out and light your hair on fire. When I chose my 4S battery, I did quite a bit of searching around because I wanted to buy a 4S battery that was essentially the same weight as my 3S battery. You know, I've had some 4S 2200 batteries in the past, and all it did was increase the weight of my plane by over 2 ounces, which, you know, kind of defeats the purpose. If you want to get out there and just have some, you know, dragster speed and do those, you know, go up and see Jim Kirk in the Starship Enterprise vertical pullouts, you don't want to be gaining weight if you can help it. So I went with this. This is a 1550 3S 75C. It's a Tattoo R-Line. It's a pretty high quality battery, and thus far I've done reviews on these as well. I'll have links to that playlist down below. Really good battery. So that's something you want to think about. So, you know, I look at my 4S flying, you know, if you've watched my videos, I just essentially get out there, take off, and I'm just, you know, doing these kind of dragster high-speed bursts up and down the field, the odd vertical pullout, and you know, I only get maybe 3-minute flights out of that, and that's fine. You know, I don't, I'm not. Sometimes my heart can't manage much more than that anyway, because things do happen noticeably faster. You know, depending on the plane, as I discussed in the previous video. I'm not going to get into that too much. So some things that you do have to consider when you take that jump. Let's just talk initially about the thrust jump. So if I go on this airplane using, let's talk about the 6x3 EMP prop, because I think that this would be the best choice for me personally anyway on 4S. And I actually have field tested this on this motor on 4S with this prop. I'll have links to that video down below. So on 3S, it was cranking out 1,045 grams of thrust, pulling 30.6 amps. We jump up to 4S, same settings. It's pulling 40.4 amps, but we've jumped up to 1,470 grams of thrust. So it's about a 40% increase in thrust, 30 plus increase, I guess, percent plus increase in amp draw. I have read somewhere where this is about a 41 amp motor. So we're pushing it right to its edge, but you know, I think it's, you know, my experience with it thus far, it has proven to handle it. So if you can, you kind of want to know what the amp limit is on your motor. Many manufacturers will provide that. They don't all do. So sometimes you just have to, I guess, take a chance. But if you know that, then you don't want to put a prop on there that's going to drive it over that amp rating. So let's just say that based on drag and things like that, and depending on your where you live, let's just say that you have a 25% increase in speed. Well, things happen like just flying the plane around, even at mid-throttle, the plane is moving a lot faster. So right off the bat, you have to adjust, your launch. Most of my planes, when I launch them on 3S, I'm probably in the neighborhood of about 50% throttle. If I try and launch, or if I push the throttle up to 50% sometimes on 4S, it just about rips the plane out of my hand. So you have to be a bit more cautious there. It'll kind of go by feel. I probably launch most of the time at around 40% throttle. And then once I get airborne, if you've flown it enough, you sort of know based on speed. But, if you're clipping along at half throttle, 60% throttle on 4S, you're going to be going considerably faster. So, you depending again on where you are with your skill levels, you might want to consider maybe reducing your throws a little bit, or adding in a little bit more expo. You definitely want to give yourself lots of room, because where the plane is at a certain throttle setting and where it's going to be 2 seconds from now on 4S is far different than what it's going to be on 3S. So those are things that you want to consider. Again, take your time, get up there high like you normally do when you're trying something out new, and don't try and do these crazy full throttle high speed take your head off passes that I seem to have some sort of death wish doing. So so that's something to consider. All right, so again, you need to know sort of what the amp draw is going to be. Even if you don't want to go get a thrust stand, what I would highly recommend, even if you go and buy all the same components that I buy, and you read my motor test spreadsheet, I would highly recommend, if you're going to be in electric RC planes for any length of time, go and buy yourself a watt meter. I got this one years ago from Hobby King. I don't even think this one is available anymore, but I think you can get one now from Banggood for maybe about 12 bucks. Believe me, it's well worth it, because you can hook this up in between your battery and your speed controller, give your throttle a quick few seconds, and you'll be able to see how many amps you're drawing. And the amps you're drawing is the thing that you want to pay attention to, because too high an amp draw can damage motor, speed controller, and battery, or all three, which is not something that you want to see. Okay, so I would strongly recommend you get one of these. And if you don't already, I would also pick up, these are, I think Banggood actually sells them in pairs, which is really handy, because then you can have one on your desk, at your workbench, and one in your flight box. This just allows you to check the health of your battery. Right away. It just cycles through. You can see there, hopefully, it cycles through what the voltage is on each cell and what your total voltage is. So these are this is very handy, because then, especially as you're trying out a new battery, you're trying out your 4S battery, and you're kind of still trying to figure out how long your flight time is, this will really help. 4S batteries are not cheap, so I really like to baby mine. I always balance them, charge them on balance charge. I always put them in storage charge when I'm done, just so that I don't have to replace them, because I do push them hard. I mean, you don't put a racing engine in your car to drive around in second gear in your neighborhood. So so that's something to consider. So the other thing to consider is, I think if you've been around electrics, you hopefully understand that, to determine how many amps the battery can deliver, you take the amps, or milliamps. This is a 2200 battery, so let's say it's going to be 2.2 amps times 45C, which is 90 plus amps. So let's talk about the 4-cell here, because I actually wrote the numbers down. So okay, so a fully charged battery, this battery is a 75C with a 150 burst. But so it's charged, fully charged 1.55 times 75, this battery theoretically should be able to deliver 116 amps right off the get-go. But that's with a full tank. So as this 1550 number gets drawn down, one of the things that I've learned the hard way is you want to have an idea of, you know, how many milliamps am I going to have left in the battery as I get towards the end of the flight. If you're not 100% sure, one thing you can get a ballpark is, you know, when you get the brand new battery, put it on, hook it up to your charger, put it in storage charge, which will, you know, should take it down to like 3.8 volts per cell, and then charge it up to full and see how many milliamps of power go into it. So now you know that, okay, if, like for example with my battery, when I charged it and tried that yesterday, I put from storage charge to fully charged, I put about 800 milliamps exactly. So there's meaning that I would have had 750 milliamps at 3.8 volts per cell. Now I'm not trying to insult your intelligence here or impress you with my math skills. I just hope that you can be able to follow the logic. So if, let's say I was flying, towards the end of the flight, now this battery's ability to deliver the amps, 0.75 or 750 milliamps times 75, now it's only delivering about 56 amps. So with this motor, that's not a problem, because like I said, on 4S, you know, it's only pulling about 40 amps. With a motor like this is the GEP RC motor, super powerful and speedy. You know, this is pulling over 60 amps. So now, you know, I'm probably going into my buffer. This battery has a crazy buffer of burst of up to 150. So theoretically, now I still should be able to get 112 amps out of that. But this is what I would say, this is my rule of thumb, even when I buy high quality batteries like this, is always, you know, when you estimate that, always give yourself about a 25% buffer, because in my experience, even with good high quality batteries, there can still be a situation where the C rating is a bit ambitious by the company. And unfortunately, as you get down into some of the cheaper and less expensive batteries, sometimes it gets more and more ambitious, if you know what I mean. So I always try and use a 25% overhead to, you know, to be able to know that amp delivery. And also, don't just always focus on what I would suggest is don't use, you know, use a battery and always rely on the fact that the burst rating is going to give you what you need, okay? Because I've learned again the hard way, if you do that, your batteries are going to be pretty short-lived, because you're going to push them way too hard, and if it, you know, that burst rating was a bit ambitious, you know, you're going to cook your batteries. And you know, batteries are one of the most expensive parts of our hobby to replace, with, you know, with the shipping and all of that sort of stuff that we have to pay now. So that's you know, that's sort of my thoughts there. So you know, this would be a great way to jump. You know, the difference between this on 3S and with this prop and going to this motor on 4S is you're looking at about 500 or 600 grams extra thrust. So it's a big jump in speed. You know, if you think you're really ready, you know, you can try something like this GEP RC. This is probably, without a doubt, the most powerful motor I've ever used in any of my park jets in the 7 years that I've flown park jets. Now, it's a considerably different beast. On 4S with this 6x3 prop, it's pulling 60.3, and but it's delivering 1,770 grams of thrust, which is a 300 gram increase over this motor, which is again considerable. You know, even if it was only another 150 grams, 200 grams, you know, based on drag of your plane, it is significant. And if you watch some of my videos, it is really scary how fast that thing can go. So you don't want to go and get yourself, you know, some big heavy 60 amp speed controller. I think if you really want to push the envelope, and I don't get kickbacks from Banggood or Hobbywing or anything else, but this is without a doubt the best speed controller that I've ever used, and I've run this motor It has a 60 amp burst, and it's 40 amps but a 60 amp burst. And I would say of all the speed controllers that I've run, this is without a doubt rated the closest to, or performs the closest to what they rate it and label it at. And I've run this thing, as I said, many flights on 4S with this motor. It's expensive. It's over $40 American. Banggood doesn't have it in, I don't think has it in stock right now, but I did recently pick one up from a vendor in Italy. The vendor was in Italy. It shipped from Singapore. The price ended up being the same, and it actually got to me in about 12 days, which is a lot faster than Banggood. So, excuse me. So anyway, so those are some things to think about. You know, make sure, what I would say is, you know, really make sure that you're ready to take the next step. If you're just getting into it, you're starting to feel pretty confident. You know, keep running your 2200 motor, your 2212, 2200 motor. My recommendation always, and I'll have a link to a video. I did a long video on this motor. I call it the ParkJet Workhorse. I would recommend always starting off with a 40 amp speed controller, and a good quality 40 amp speed controller. If you're going to make the jump where you're going to experiment with props or even eventually go to 4S, I would strongly encourage you not to trust your no-name, inexpensive speed controller that you got off eBay or something, because it could cause you some issues. So yeah, so like I said, experiment with some props on the 2212. You know, bring up your speed incrementally. See how you can handle it. How you might need to adjust your throws or your expo so that you're comfortable flying your plane. I mean, it's going to be exciting enough as it is. You don't want to scare yourself because, you know, if your plane is unstable or twitchy, the faster you go, it's going to be more unstable and more twitchy for the most part. And then if you want to, you know, take the next step, you know, this RacerStar BR2406S I rated this as the best value budget quad motor of all that I tested. Very versatile. You know, you can run it on 3S, 4S. It'll spin a variety of props. It's a really good good motor, and you can run it if you don't want to spend extra. If you've already been running it on you know, your 2212 on a 40 amp speed controller, you don't need to go out and buy a new speed controller. You just buy a new motor, and away you go. You will need to buy you know, the X mount and all that sort of stuff to mount on the back, so you can mount it in most Parkjets, and I'll have a link down below where you can buy that. And then if you really want to take it you know, to the super next level, this Gepard C on 4S is the fastest, most powerful motor I've ever run, and it is really a beast. It can take a lot of punishment. I'm really super happy with how it's been running. Okay, so I hope that helps. Again, you know, don't. I just caution you, don't just do things on a whim. You know, do a little bit of research when you're going to jump from 3S to 4S. Make sure you're matching the right prop, motor, speed controller, battery, so that you have some enjoyment and you don't cook something and end up wasting your money and then, you know, it being a negative experience. Because it is, you know, taking even a, you know, 20 to 30% jump in speed. It's a whole new world from how you fly your plane, how you set up your plane, that sort of stuff. So it's worthwhile. You know, I remember when I was younger, there used to be a Fram oil filter commercial. They used to say, "Pay me now or pay me later." So, you know, you either spend a little bit of extra money up front and not have to replace batteries or speed controllers later, or, you know, you buy the cheap stuff and take the risk of burning it out really quick, and then you got to buy something else afterwards. So I hope that's been helpful. Again, please check out the comments down below. There'll be links to lots more info that might help you with some thoughts and ideas of how you can you know, start increasing the speed, and you know, if you want to eventually making that jump up to 4S in your Parkjets. It's really a lot of fun, believe me. I mean, it's, you know, I'm partial to it. You know, you don't have to fly fast like I do. It's you know, my #1 mantra in this hobby is do what makes you happy, not what makes me happy. So there we go. So thanks very much for watching. Blue skies, calm winds to everyone. Parkjet noise, the sound of freedom, baby. Take care.